Ryan Davin hated these kinds of meetings. Not the grand councils or galactic summits, he could handle those. No, it was these intimate, high-stakes cultural exchanges that unnerved him. One misstep, one misinterpreted gesture, and humanity's fragile place in the Galactic Concord could crumble. Today's setting didn't help. The Zevra planet, Varvok, was all sterile white walls and symmetrical halls, perfectly polished yet lifeless. It made him itch for the vibrant chaos of Earth. Across from him sat Lady Zurich, a Zevra diplomat whose poise was as unyielding as the metallic table separating them. Her silver eyes flickered with a blend of curiosity and mild disdain. She gestured to the object on the table between them, a human anatomical model that had somehow become the focal point of their cultural exchange. And this, she said, her voice smooth and precise, is used for, what purpose, exactly? Ryan blinked, suppressing a sigh. He'd explained it twice already. It's an anatomical model, Lady Zurich. It's a tool for education, to help our people understand human biology. Lady Zurich's delicate hand hovered over the model, her thin fingers tracing the contours with a puzzled expression. Then, without warning, her lips curled into what Ryan could only interpret as a smile. If Zevra were even capable of such things, an educational toy for reproduction. She asked, her voice laced with genuine surprise. Your species uses this to breed? The room seemed to freeze. Ryan felt the color drain from his face as the gravity of her misunderstanding struck him. A nervous chuckle escaped his lips before he could stop it. It's not a toy. It's a representation of how we reproduce biologically. Yes, but, oh, I see, she interrupted, leaning back in her chair, clearly still amused by what she thought was primitive behavior. Physical reproduction. How quaint. I had assumed your species had evolved beyond such methods. Ryan's stomach twisted. The Zevra, who replicated themselves through genetic engineering, saw human reproduction as a relic of the past. And now, he realized, this misunderstanding was more than just awkward, it could become a diplomatic disaster. He cleared his throat. Lady Zurich, human reproduction is a natural process. Yes, it's different from the way Zevra replicate, but it's not inferior. In fact, you misunderstand, Ambassador, she said, waving a dismissive hand. We don't see it as inferior. Merely, entertaining. Her eyes gleamed with amusement as she exchanged glances with the other Zevra dignitaries. Ryan's heart sank. This wasn't just a cultural faux pas, it was the beginning of something far more dangerous. He knew how these things worked. If the Zevra chose to escalate this, if they formally complained to the Galactic Concord, humanity's standing could be questioned. And once the Concord started questioning, there was no telling where it might end. Forcing a diplomatic smile, Ryan leaned forward. I think we need to clarify a few things, Lady Zurich. Human biology may surprise you, but I assure you, there's much more to it than meets the eye. The real battle, he realized, had only just begun. Ryan Davin felt the weight of the conversation lingering like a storm cloud as he walked through the Zevra facility. The sterile corridors hummed with a cold efficiency, matching the demeanor of its inhabitants. There were no bustling scientists, no hurried footsteps. Just the hum of machines, the occasional hiss of automated doors, and the silent pulse of technology that ran the Zevra world. Dr. Viros, the head geneticist, floated beside him with unnerving grace. The tall, pale figure exuded calm as if nothing could disturb his sense of purpose. Ryan, in contrast, felt a growing knot of frustration and concern tightening in his chest. I must say, Ambassador Davin, Dr. Viros began, his voice as even and clinical as the air around them, it's been fascina. To study your species' biological processes. So unrefined. Ryan's lips twitched. He could sense where this was heading, but he had to maintain control. Diplomacy was a delicate dance. Unrefined? He echoed, keeping his tone light. That's an interesting way to put it. They passed a chamber where translucent tubes held fetuses suspended in a glowing liquid. Zevra offspring, Rhine realized. Grown in labs, shaped to genetic perfection. No birth, no physical interaction, no mess. The entire process was controlled, engineered, predictable, of course, Dr. Viros continued, stopping by the glass panel. We Zevra eliminated the need for biological reproduction eons ago. It was inefficient and prone to failure. Now, we select the finest genetic material and replicate it. Perfect beings, born without the chaos of mating rituals or the unpredictable emotions that plague primitive species. Rhine could feel the jab aimed at humanity, subtle yet sharp. The implication was clear: the Zevra considered humans little more than relics of a bygone era, clinging to outdated biological instincts, and yet, Rhine said, folding his arms, it's that very chaos, as you call it, that's driven humanity's evolution. Emotions, love, desire, even conflict, have been catalysts for some of our greatest achievements. Dr. Viros raised a brow, the barest flicker of curiosity breaking his otherwise neutral expression. Achievements? Such as? Rhine took a deep breath, knowing the conversation was slipping onto dangerous ground. Well, let's just say that the human spirit thrives on connection. The unpredictability of life, of relationships, it's why we've explored the stars, created art, and pushed the boundaries of science. The Zevra geneticist considered this, tapping long fingers against the glass. I see. So, you believe these emotions, this chaos, is what makes your species special? Rhine met the doctor's gaze, unflinching. I believe it's what makes us alive. For a moment, there was silence. Then, Dr. Viros gave a slow nod, as if acknowledging a point well made, but not entirely understood. Fascinating. Though I suspect many of the Concord species might disagree. Rhine's stomach sank. This wasn't just a debate about biology anymore. The Zevra were planting seeds of doubt, not just here, but within the minds of the galaxy's most powerful factions, and humanity's place in the stars hung in the balance. Back in the sterile, gleaming conference room, Rhine sat stiffly across from Lady Zurich once more. The tension between them was palpable. As he glanced around at the other Zevra officials, each one immaculate in their pristine robes, faces emotionless, he couldn't help but feel like he was an exhibit in one of their scientific displays. Being scrutinized for some fundamental flaw, you've made your case, Ambassador, Lady Zurich said, her voice cool and formal. But your claims of human uniqueness, tied to this emotional chaos, as you call it, hardly seem like an advantage in a galactic community that values precision and control. Rhine could feel the trap closing in, but he had no intention of being cornered. He leaned forward slightly, hands clasped on the table. The galaxy doesn't just run on logic and efficiency. It runs on life. On unpredictability. Even you, Lady Zurich, with all your control, can't predict the path of every star in the cosmos. The tiniest flicker of irritation crossed her face, just enough to show that his words were getting under her skin. What exactly are you proposing, Ambassador? She asked, her silver eyes narrowing. Rhine paused, knowing this next part would be risky, but it was a gamble he had to take. I propose a cultural exchange, he said. A direct observation of our species' natural processes. Her brow arched. Are you suggesting we send one of our own to experience human reproduction firsthand? The question hung in the air, laden with tension. Rhine knew this was not just about science or diplomacy. It was about power. The Zevra saw themselves as superior beings, engineered perfection in flesh. For one of their own to engage in something as raw and chaotic as human reproduction would be seen as a violation of their core beliefs, but it was the only way to make them understand. Not reproduction, per se, he corrected gently. But a first-hand look at how humans live, how our emotions and connections shape our actions. It's not something that can be understood through observation from afar. Lady Zurich leaned back, her expression unreadable. The silence stretched for a long moment before she finally spoke, her voice a dangerous whisper. And if we refuse? Ryan felt the weight of the galaxy on his shoulders. He couldn't let this opportunity slip away. Humanity's reputation, its standing in the Galactic Concord, was at stake. If the Zevra dismissed them as primitive, other species might follow suit. This was about more than biology, it was about survival. If you refuse, Ryan said slowly, choosing his words carefully, you'll miss an opportunity to witness something you can't engineer in a lab. Something that makes humanity more than just a collection of cells. Something that, in time, the rest of the galaxy may come to see as an advantage. For a brief second, Lady Zirich's silver eyes glimmered with intrigue. A crack in her stoic exterior. She leaned forward, her voice barely above a whisper. I will consider your proposal, Ambassador Davin. But tread carefully. If this gamble fails, the consequences will be severe. Ryan's heart raced, but he held her gaze. I understand. The real challenge was about to begin. The Zevra shuttle descended through the atmosphere of Earth with the precision of a needle threading its way through fabric. Ryan stood on the observation deck of New Earth Embassy, watching as the sleek silver craft lowered itself into the docking bay. His palms were damp with nervous energy, but he masked it with the practiced calm of a diplomat. Today was the day. Lady Zirich had accepted his proposal. The hatch of the shuttle opened, releasing a sharp hiss of air, and there she was, Lady Zirich herself, accompanied by a small entourage of Zevra officials. She moved with that same calculated grace, her every step a deliberate echo of control. As her silver eyes scanned the human officials waiting to greet her, there was a flicker of something, a hint of curiosity, beneath her normally unshakable exterior. Ryan stepped forward, offering a diplomatic smile. Welcome to Earth, Lady Zirich. I trust your journey was smooth. She inclined her head slightly, her gaze never leaving him. It was, efficient, Ambassador Davin. They exchanged formalities, but Ryan could sense the unease underlying the meeting. The stakes of this cultural exchange were higher than ever. Lady Zirich was not here out of idle curiosity. She was here to judge humanity. This would be her first-hand glimpse into the chaotic emotions, connections, and experiences that define the human race, everything the Zevra saw as their antithesis. After introductions, they moved to the facility where Lady Zirich would be staying. The Zevra entourage was given access to every level of human life they wished to observe. Ryan knew what she wanted, to witness human reproduction. But not in the crude sense she had initially misunderstood. No, what Lady Zirich was truly interested in was how the unpredictable elements of human relationships and emotions played into their decision-making and interactions. Tell me, Ambassador, she said, as they walked down a corridor lined with windows overlooking the busy streets of New Chicago, how does your species manage the conflict between reason and emotion? Ryan glanced at her, the question catching him slightly off guard. He had expected her to be cold, dismissive, but this was almost philosophical. It's not something we manage, Lady Zirich, he replied carefully. It's something we embrace. Our emotions, our desires, they're not distractions from reason. They guide it. Shape it. Sometimes they lead to mistakes, but they also lead to innovation, creativity, progress. Lady Zirich's eyes flickered, a rare sign of uncertainty. Interesting. On Varvok, we see emotion as a flaw to be eradicated. It interferes with logic. Yet your people seem to rely on it, Ryan nodded. Yes, because it's a part of us. It drives us to protect our families, to explore the unknown, to build civilizations. Without it, we wouldn't be here, on this diplomatic mission, negotiating for our place in the galaxy. They stopped by a window, looking out at the city below. Humans moved about their lives in a bustling dance of unpredictability, laughing, arguing, loving. A world of contradictions. For the first time, Ryan saw something in Lady Zirich's gaze he hadn't expected. Wonder, perhaps, she murmured, almost to herself, there's more to your chaos than I realized. the experiment was just beginning. Days passed, and the cultural exchange between Lady Zurich and humanity had gone beyond what either side anticipated. The Zevra delegation meticulously observed human interactions, from the bonds formed in families to the volatile dynamics of romance, friendship, and even rivalry. Rhine accompanied her to various human institutions, schools, parks, marketplaces, places where the raw energy of human life pulsed, but it was during a visit to a small, unassuming village outside the city that things began to unravel. Lady Zurich and Rhine stood at the edge of a community gathering. The scent of freshly baked bread filled the air as children played in the dirt, their laughter rising in bursts of joy. Families sat around long wooden tables, talking animatedly, hands gesturing in passionate conversation. It was so different from the sterile, controlled environments of the Zevra, a place where no noise existed without purpose, where every movement was calculated for efficiency. Rhine could see it in Lady Zurich's face. She was struggling to make sense of the chaos. She had been watching this unpredictable human mess for days, trying to fit it into her neat, structured worldview. And it wasn't working. Look at them, she whispered, almost to herself. Her voice, usually so steady, had a tremor. How do they function like this? It's disorder. Rhine watched her closely, noticing the subtle cracks in her composure. The serene, calculated Lady Zurich was beginning to falter under the weight of this new reality. It was everything she had been taught to reject, to fear. He chose his words carefully. They function because of it, not in spite of it, Rhine said, keeping his voice gentle. The connections you see, the laughter, the arguments, the love, that's what holds them together. We aren't isolated beings, Lady Zurich. We thrive in the mess of life. She turned to him, her silver eyes narrowing. But this chaos breeds inefficiency. Conflict. Pain. Yes, Rhine agreed, but it also breeds joy. Connection. Purpose. You can't have one without the other. Her gaze flickered, as though something deep within her was beginning to shift. She had always believed emotions to be weaknesses, distractions from the pure, logical order of life. But here, in the midst of this chaotic human village, she was witnessing something she couldn't explain. The bonds these people shared were powerful, stronger than anything engineered in a lab. It was primal, organic, and utterly beyond her control. Lady Zurich's hands trembled as she clenched them by her sides. How? How can you rely on something so unpredictable? Rhine studied her face, seeing the battle raging within her, logic warring against something far more human. He knew she was on the edge of something profound, something that could change everything. We don't rely on it, Rhine said softly. We embrace it. That's what makes us who we are. That's why we've survived. For a long moment, Lady Zurich said nothing. She looked back at the village, her expression unreadable, as though trying to absorb something beyond her understanding, and then, finally, she whispered, I don't know if I can. Rhine didn't respond. He knew that for Lady Zurich, this was the moment that would decide her, and perhaps humanity's, future in the galaxy. The unraveling had begun. The sun rose over the horizon, casting a golden hue across the landscape of New Chicago. But for Rhine Davin, this morning felt different, charged with an energy he had never before experienced. Today marked the culmination of weeks spent reshaping the very perceptions of humanity, and the stakes had never been higher. In the main conference room of the New Earth Embassy, representatives from the Galactic Concord were gathering, each one an ambassador of their respective worlds, each one possessing a distinct perspective on what they believed humanity represented. Lady Zurich stood at the front, her presence both commanding and unsettling. She had transformed since her arrival, her once cold demeanor now punctuated with moments of curiosity and uncertainty, reflections of the humanity she had begun to embrace. Rhine stepped forward, taking his place beside her, feeling the weight of a million expectations resting on their shoulders. This wasn't just about the two of them, it was about the future of Earth in a galaxy that had always looked down upon it. Esteemed delegates, Lady Zurich began, her voice steady yet tinged with the remnants of a struggle. Today, we come together not merely as representatives of different worlds but as witnesses to the complexity of life itself. The human experience is a tapestry woven from emotion, chaos, and unpredictability, elements that have long been dismissed as flaws in the eyes of the zebra. Ryan felt the tension in the room, the other delegates shifted in their seats, some skeptical, others intrigued. He sensed the moment teetering on the edge of transformation. Lady Zurich continued, "What we learned in our time on Earth is that this chaos is not something to be eradicated but embraced. It is the essence of connection that drives their creativity, innovation, and resilience. Today, I propose we acknowledge humanity not just as a primitive species but as an equal partner in the Galactic Concord." The room erupted into murmurs. Ryan caught a glance from the Elorian ambassador, his eyes narrowing, and he knew that resistance was brewing. "Is this truly what we want?" the Elorian asked, standing to voice his dissent. "To welcome a species that thrives on chaos? How can we trust that their unpredictability will not bring destruction?" "Let us not confuse chaos with danger," Ryan interjected, stepping into the spotlight. "Humanity's ability to navigate uncertainty has propelled us to new heights. We adapt, we learn, and most importantly, we care. Those qualities, forged in the fires of our emotions, can lead to collaboration rather than conflict." Another voice rose, a Krelm ambassador, his skin a shifting array of colors. "But how can we accept a species whose very existence is a paradox? What if their emotions lead them astray? We must think of our safety." Ryan took a breath, grounding himself. "What if I told you that our emotions have led us to the stars? That the very drive to explore, to reach beyond our limitations, is born from our passions? If we are to thrive as a collective, we must learn to understand each other's strengths and weaknesses." Lady Zurich looked at Ryan, and he saw a flicker of admiration in her gaze. Together, they stood before the galaxy, ready to redefine the narrative. "Humanity has proven its worth," she added, her voice gaining strength. "It is time we step into a new dawn, a partnership forged not in fear but in understanding." The tension in the room began to shift, the murmurs of dissent fading into thoughtful silence. Ryan felt a wave of hope wash over him. Perhaps, just perhaps, they were on the brink of something extraordinary. The dawn had arrived, and with it, a chance to rewrite the future.